We're gonna dive Saguenay, the best wreck in Nova Scotia.
Most of the wrecks in this area are totally destroyed. The North Atlantic is unforgiving.
Saguenay was the best ship I was on with the best crew. The Navy decided using them as reefs and diving platforms made more sense than just taking them out to sea and sinking them or tearing them apart.
I'm hoping there's a shark. I'm like, come on, say there's a shark, say there's a shark.
Chief Magistrate of the town of Lunenburg, His Worship, Matt Treasurer, and Town Council, I bring to you a message of hope, light, and gratitude.
We're in Lunenburg, getting ready to go on the Sag. I'm so excited. I've never been on it before.
We're gonna dive the Saguenay, the best wreck in Nova Scotia.
The Sag is an old Navy ship. It got sunk in 1994. My grandfather was actually one of the last crews that was on the Sag before they sank it. And I've also found out that my Uncle Wally had worked on that ship.
I was a bosun, which is an upper deck technician. I had 16 ships in the Navy I sailed on. 33 years in the Navy, 6 years on Saguenay. That was my very first ship. I joined it in the end of '82, early '83.
What's better than going a little piece of Canadian history for Canada Day? It will hit me a little bit close to my heart because I have sailed on some of those ships.
Saguenay was built in 1956. It was 88 or 89 that Canada decided they were all coming 40 years old. The Navy, they started decommissioning them one at a time. Because these ships are so wide open, they decided that using them as reefs and diving platforms made more sense than just taking them out to sea and sinking them or tearing them apart.
Canada Day was Torpedo Ray's first chartered dive to the Saguenay of the year. So it was really exciting to be able to attend that dive.
Torpedo Rays has been doing this for about 20 years now.
Yeah, I love Canada Day, and I think we should really celebrate what we have and how lucky we are. We had Canada Day shirts on, there was cowboy hats.
There's a huge party behind us. It's kind of neat to see.
Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
So we're just finished loading up the boat. Everybody's just kind of starting to get everything together to get ready to go on the dive. And then pretty soon here, we'll head out.
There is an exuberant amount of people on this boat. It's very crowded. You become very close friends with everybody because you have to.
On our way to the Saguenay, we're pretty close. She's about a half mile ahead of us.
Bill Flowers, he's a wicked captain. He's so knowledgeable. Bill's always good for a story. Like, he'll always tell you solid stories.
A couple friends of mine and myself decided years ago that we needed some more dive sites in the area. We purchased the Saguenay for $1, and we bought her out here. She's a 366-foot destroyer, and we sank her as a dive park, and it's become quite an attraction.
There's so many seals here right now in Nova Scotia. There's over 400,000 seals, and that's basically a feeding ground for sharks. I'm hoping there's a shark. The big ones, we want those ones. We want the sharks around us.
I mean, great white sharks.
Great white sharks.
I've never seen a predator that large underwater.
I think I would probably try to follow it and video it because that's what I do with the animals.
O-Search is a company that tags them out here. So they have satellite tags and they've named them all. You can actually go online and visit osearch.org and see which sharks are where. You can track their movement so we can better understand their migration. And we both checked it this morning. And yeah, 2 sharks in the
They're
area.
just around Mahone Bay.
Oh, that's so good! Right here. Oh, it didn't work very well. That's pretty good.
You see it?
Yeah. Getting ready. As you can see, it's a little crowded, so we wanted to put on our gear like halfway up just to save some space.
You find the mooring line, drop her down, and away you go.
And now we can run this as a tag line, so the divers, if there's any current, will be able to use this line to get up to the buoy.
I'm just sorting out everybody. So some people have decided to do one long dive. So I'm just making note so that when we come up, we aren't like, where are they?
So we had 22 divers on the boat that day, which is pretty much the maximum capacity of divers that it can hold. There was a lot of excitement in the air. So that kind of made me more excited for the dive as well. So it is frequently dove on, but I had never done it before.
You guys who haven't dove on this boat yet, there's 2 entry points. You can either do a back roll or whatever kind of roll you want from right here, or you can go off over the ladder and do a giant stride. I will run a tag line off the stern, okay? Basically, we're tied up about 50 feet from the stern of the wreck on the mooring buoy. We have, the shipwreck is laying on its starboard side, 90 feet to the sand, and it runs east and west. So straight to the east is the bow, to the west is the stern, okay? So my only request is please use the mooring line to surface if possible. If not, when you surface, give me an okay.
Right now, we have 5 in. Krista's just getting in the water, so that makes 6.
You good? Do you want me to check you over? It's really important on shipwrecks like this to do a buddy check. So even if you have to do it twice with somebody or somebody different, it's just good to do it for precautions and stuff.
I'm looking forward to seeing a wreck.
Oh my God!
The Saguenay is a very well-known dive site. It's one of the most accessible wreck dives as well in Nova Scotia.
This is a super cool wreck for these guys to dive on. It's a warship. Most of the wrecks in this area are totally destroyed. There's nothing left of them. The North Atlantic is unforgiving. There's a wreck on this island. There's 2 or 3 over here. And there's just little tiny pieces of steel left. That's it, you know. So to have an intact ship laying on the bottom in a very natural environment is super cool. It's a hard dive. Used to be all guys. It's super cool to have these have the girls out here, and they're very capable, and I hope they're enjoying themselves. It's a great place for these guys as a training area. We had the RCMP out here. We've had the Canadian Navy divers out here. The Sartecs come out, and they've been using it as a training ground.
We swam along the side of the boat towards the front where the descent line was. Once we're all together as a group, we descended along this line using it as a visual reference. I love doing deep dives like that because you're kind of just sinking into the abyss. It's kind of spooky, but you couldn't see the wreck from the surface at all.
I stayed on top and hovered, and I was able to film the bubbles as the guys were going down, which almost looks like big jellyfish coming up towards like the lens of the camera. It was amazing.
So you're kind of just descending into the darkness. After about 3 minutes of descending, you start to see the bottom appear. And that day we were diving with Curtis, who was nice enough to put a line from our anchor line leading to the ship. Normally you'd use a mooring line that's actually attached to the middle of the ship, but because that was the first dive of the season, that mooring line was not up yet. So we descended upon a line 50 feet east of where the Saguenay was sunk. So I was happy to have that reference line so that we could actually find the ship. I've heard that divers in the past, when visibility is poor, haven't found the ship at all. So as we started to swim towards the wreck, I could see that there was something kind of colorful on one side of the bow. As we started to swim closer, I started to make out the image of a maple leaf.
Curtis had actually set up this huge Canada Day flag for us and had this bright light behind it. So when we went down, you see this beaming red glowing, and you're like, what is that?
One thing that the Navy does is we show the flag. Everywhere we go in the world, we have the Canada flag flying.
We're excited and showed our pride for the day.
Wow, this is so cool. Like, this is awesome. I'm in love with Canada. Canada's the best place in the world. And you're just like all pumped up and amped because you're like, I found the flag. That means I found the sag.
Seeing younger people like Jen doing that kind of stuff tells me that what we did was not for nothing, because they're still proud of it, and the Navy and the flag still means a lot to them. I was a brand new sailor. I was right out of high school, went to basic training and came into Halifax and went on the Saguenay, and it was a very big eye-opening experience going on board the ship to be a sailor for the first time at 20 years old.
Just to be down there and know where everything is, like where the bollards are and the torpedo stacks and everything, is it's kind of cool to see.
Just so cool that it's fully intact. And I've noticed over the past few years, it's starting to tilt more.
I had been on the Sag before, but Alana had never been on the Sag. April and Josh have been on multiple times. So it's kind of cool to see her reaction, because I've seen her dive on wrecks in the Bahamas, but to dive this Sag was her first one in Nova Scotia. And just to watch, like, you could see her eyes just go, ping, like her mask was just eyeballs.
So we explored the bow of the ship first, kind of making our way all the way around it, reaching the middle of the ship, which had a long protrusion kind of jetting out from the middle. And that was the crow's nest. The crow's nest is, or would have been, the lookoff point. Stretched out maybe 30 feet or so, and then on the very tip of it was a circular area that someone could then use as a lookoff point.
It was so cool, because once we got up to the crow's nest, I was like, look right here, and you can like look through, and there's all these like sea anemones and kind of like these little fish, and these fish are just like by thousands, and they're just like staring at you, and they're like bouncing themselves off your mask.
That circular area offered some protection, and it also offered something for creatures to grow on. So it was covered in pluming anemones, and there were dozens of cunnerfish just swimming in and out of it. I think I had a moment with the fish. They were maybe as captivated with me as I was with them.
So she's just sitting there like mesmerized, like, what is going on? I'm like, okay, we gotta go though.
Saw the stern, and because the Sag was sunken kind of on an angle, there's a few swim-throughs you can go to on the stern. So we went through the swim-through. I captured video of Jen swim through it as well. And that was just a fun time to almost feel like you're in a cave of some sort.
We went in. There are some swim-throughs. And you could do some of the swim-throughs through the railings and stuff, so I was all for that. I was like, get me in here, and I was just like, woo, like this. I think diving on the Saguenay, now knowing that my family connection is so strong to it, has really made an impact, and it makes it a little more special. Now I want to go down and like inspect every nook and cranny and be like, so where were they standing? My Uncle Wally is such a great storyteller. He has so many great things to say about his time on the Saguenay.
I graduated from basic training in 1982 and went right to Saguenay May of '83, and I was on there until just about the end of '88. We were gone nonstop back in those days. We could easily go for 180 days a year, like royal visits and numerous NATOs, and Saguenay had done a lot of stuff and through its life, I'll tell you. Our areas in May, June, and July would be fishery patrols and Great Lakes tours up through the Great Lakes, and then every September, October, November, you would go eastland over to the North Sea and deal with all the European countries and everything. I've seen more cities and countries than a normal person would ever even dream of, and everywhere you went, you got to be involved with everything from going to major sporting events to being involved in countries having celebrations, and it was pretty spectacular as a young sailor to do that stuff. Everything you did had somebody's life in your hands. So you had to learn your job and learn the ship, because when you're in the middle of the ocean, nobody's out there to help you.
And when they actually sank it, there was a couple issues in the beginning when they first sunk it. It didn't quite go as straight up as they planned.
She didn't go down straight. She went down fighting. I'll guarantee you that. But she was well sailed prior to that.
It actually keeps like tilting every year, tilts further and further, and yeah, it's kind of cool.
So every summer when I do my first dive, which is usually Canada Day, that's usually the first time I get on the wreck. It's a little more slanted every year, so I think years and years from now, it'll be totally on its side, which would be kind of interesting.
In my naval career, I was on 16 vessels, 21 years sea time, and by far, Saguenay was the best ship I was on with the best crew. I loved every minute of those years on Saguenay.
This is the Canadian Armed Forces, Navy, right? So it's an artificial reef, but I think that it's a really good way to spend Canada Day, and we brought down a Canada flag, got some pictures with it, and since it is an underwater historic site, it's great to see, people are still visiting it, and especially tying that connection with the military.
Sad because I still wish it was around, but I'm happy that it's doing what it's doing. And it was really cool when Jen was sending the videos to look and say, I stood there, I did this, I was here when this happened, I was there when that happened.
It was about 20 minutes in, 25 minutes in, that the turnaround point of air consumption, and so we decided to end the dive and slowly make our way up the reference line to the surface. Because it was a deep dive, we also had to do a safety stop. So at 3 meters, 15 feet, we stayed at that depth, giving us time for the nitrogen bubbles in our bloodstream to then dissolve. It was a little bit eerie to just float for 3 minutes at our safety stop, again, with nothing around you. Sometimes we play rock, paper, scissors. Sometimes we just stare into the abyss. Other times you're just like locked into your computer, waiting for that 3 minutes to end. Sometimes during safety stops, you can look around at creatures. In the Bahamas, we were able to see sharks swim by a lot.
I'm hoping there's a shark. I'm like, come on, say there's a shark, say there's a shark.
We were a little bit afraid of seeing some sharks, honestly, because there's always like shark fever in the summertime in Nova Scotia.
There's no shark.
Another successful dive.
Almost everybody can tell you about their advanced course and their first dive on the Sag because it totally blew their mind.
Very fun Canada Day. I enjoyed it.
Oh, it was good. Awesome dive. Saw lots of critters and lots of plumas anemones and cunners and lots of sea urchins.
No, I came back with a lot of air, so that's a good thing.
Jen gave me the shark sign, but she didn't have like wide, scary eyes, and she wasn't like breathing very quickly or swimming around and looking around frantically. So I knew it wasn't anything, just playing tricks, getting my hopes up.
I got to see like the big crow's nest thing, and it was really cool. There's a lot of growth and a lot of fish.
Everybody accounted for? All our divers are up on the surface. Everybody's accounted for. Nobody's been eaten by any great whites.
Really special experience to go diving on a wreck.
This dive was amazing. Yeah, it was phenomenal.
It was good to know that it just wasn't being tore apart and you never see it again. People get to see it now forever. They have the abilities like Jen and them do. They get out and do it. It's pretty cool that they use them that way.
I'm really connected to the military, and I think I'm just so grateful for everything that they do for our country. But actually seeing that and being part of that with our heritage, it really gives you a heartwarming feeling.
I'm extremely proud of my niece, Jennifer. Extremely proud of her. She's a strong, hardworking, caring young woman. And the whole family really thinks highly of her because of what she does and what she continues to do every day. It wasn't just that she was going down to dive on it, that she wanted to know what she was going to dive on and what it did, and which is very impressive too. It shows how much she cares about everything that she's doing. It brought back a lot of memories, and again, like I said, it was the best boat I was ever on.